Hey everyone, this is Mike from Mike's Do It Yourself. Today I want to show you how to change out your brakes, your front brakes in a third generation Nissan Armada. Now this will be for the 2017 to 2020 years, but it's probably similar for most of the Armadas. The first thing you want to do is take off your tire and support it with support your frame with a jack and a jack stand. That way you have enough security here that it's going to hold up and it's not going to fall on you. And then when you take off your tire, it's a 21 millimeter socket that you want to take that off with. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and change out the caliper, the rotor, and the brake pads. So I'm going to do all three of those, and we'll show you that. Now after you get your tire off, you want to go ahead and take off your caliper mounting bolts, and they're going to be right here and down at the bottom here. So we'll go ahead and take those off, and I believe those are 19 millimeter. Yeah. So if you have a breaker bar, you could use that. And I like to use a rubber mallet, and I'll hit it to break it. That's that one. And we'll go ahead and do the bottom one. Now these should be torqued to about 150, 155, so it may take you a little while to get these off. But once they're loose, go ahead and take them out. Once that's loose, you don't want to let this hang by the brake line, so I'll just shove it back behind here, and then don't lose the second bolt, the bottom bolt. And then you can take off your rotor, and we'll go ahead and spray it with some brake clean. Once that dries, this was fairly easy to get off, but the vehicle only has about 40-some thousand miles on it, so I put a little bit of anti-seize lubrication. Just on the edge here. That way that rotor will be easy to get off next time. And I'll put a little bit on the threads, just on the back, the very back threads. Now if you're changing out your caliper, this is where you want to take it apart, and then these two bolts come out of here. Your guide pins here. See how they move back and forth nice and freely, or they should. If not, if you're reusing them, make sure you take these out and then throw some new grease, clean it up, throw some new grease in here, brake caliper grease, guide pin grease, and then put them back together, and that way these will slide nice and easy. But these are already pre-packed from the factory, so I won't have to mess with them. You want to grab your new brake pads. And what we're going to do, we're going to put this on first. So once we separate it, we have these bolts. We'll go ahead and put this on once we get the rotor on. So before you put this on, or after, just go ahead and spray it down with some brake clean. That way if there's any kind of surface or tackiness to it, it'll remove it. Or any kind of coating. You just want to make sure that that's removed. So we'll go ahead and get a lug nut and tighten that down. Get some brake. We'll do the other side. Just spin it. There you go. Wipe it down. Down the other side. There you go. You may have to move your old caliper back a little bit just to make room for the new one. Now, before we put the caliper back in, we'll have to put the pads on this. And you should have a bag of new hardware. That's what these look like. So we'll go ahead and open them up a little bit. So this will be on your bracket. And you'll go ahead and just pop them in place. These tabs over. And put them both. You just put one on one side and one on the other. Once those tabs are pushed down, go ahead and put a little bit of brake lubricant in these different areas here. Just a little bit, you don't need a whole lot. And that'll help the brake pads slide on these areas. Up, just not all the way. These are 19mm, if I didn't mention that already. And once those are tight, we'll go ahead and put the brake pads on. Now these are for towing, but you can get normal brake pads at your local hardware store, at your internet provider, whatever's most convenient for you. And one of these has a tab on it. Now on the initial or on the original brake pads, it was to the inside where the caliper pistons are at, so that's why this one's to the inside. And you just put these ends into the grooves here. Once those are on there, we can put these retaining pins on. Now what these do, when you release the brakes, they help push these apart. That way you don't get sticking brake pads. So you'll want to hold them together while you do this. And just there's holes in the outer plate of the brake pad that they go into. So once those are on, and you may have these sliding out quite a bit, so once those are on, just hold the brake pad together, and then you can take your main caliper and slide it over. And you may have to push in your pistons if they're not all the way in. Can get these bolts put in. Those are your retaining pins or your retaining clips. So if your retaining clips get stuck to the inside of this, you can always just use a screwdriver and just push them back to where they go. There we go. And we'll torque those in a little bit. So if you saw these copper washers in your caliper kit, they will go on either side of your hose end. So they're going to go here and down at the bottom. So you'll want to remove these once you take this out and replace them with new washers. Now if you didn't replace your calipers and you didn't open up your brake line, you want to take your old brake pads out. And you can do that after separating the two pieces. Or you can do it like this too, but it's a little more difficult with the brake lines still attached. So once you get those out and you have new brake pads, you'll want to push these two cylinders in. So you'll grab a brake pad, and with this separated, it's a lot easier. You just push this in and you'll have it right there next to the two cylinders. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so once those are separated, you'll grab a brake pad, and if you have a tool like this is what you want to use, or a type of C-clamp where you can C-clamp it from the back, or you can use this tool and use it from the other side. And then you just expand it, and then make sure your master cylinder lid is open. That way you can relieve that pressure as you push these cylinders in. So yeah, you would just keep clamping. These would go in, and more than likely you'll want these flush against the edge, the bottom edge here. So they'll go almost all the way in. And if you have any kind of damage or leakage of your boot, then you'll want to go ahead and replace these. But if they look fine, once you push them in, you should be okay. Once you get your caliper back on, you're able to torque these bolts. Now these are going to be 32 foot-pounds, the guide pin bolts for your caliper. And then your caliper mounting bolts, it's going to be here and down at the bottom. Those are going to be 155 foot-pounds. Once those are all torqued down, now would be a good time to have somebody help you bleed the brake if you did open up the brake line at all. Now what you want to do is open up your master cylinder cap and make sure you have enough in there. It's not below the minimum. And so when you're pushing that brake pad back towards your caliper pistons, make sure there's enough room for expansion too, because you will see this level go up as you're pushing in those pistons. But for bleeding the brake, it would be, this is your bleeder screw right here, and normally they're a 10 millimeter. So with a 10 millimeter and somebody holding the brake, make sure that there's pressure and pushing and holding the brake, you would go ahead and crack this open a little bit, watch for bubbles, then close it, have them repeat the process, open, close it just a little bit, and then wait till you see no more bubbles coming out, and that would be when you're good to go. Really, you should have no more air in your system. If you did open up your lines, you may have to bleed all four brakes, so just keep that in mind. Now when I've always bled the brakes, I've always closed this, so that way if you have pressure built up, you know, you're going to build pressure up when you close this. So if you're going to bleed the brakes, go ahead and close your master cylinder lid, and then you can start bleeding your brakes. And something I wanted to mention about when you put these brake pads in, some brake pads have you put a bit of lubricant right in here and right in here, or in the middle, say if you have just one cylinder or one piston. So keep that in mind. The ones I bought didn't recommend it or didn't specify to do it. I think they actually said to not put anything on here unless you just want to put like a really thin film. So it just depends on the manufacturer as to whether you're supposed to put some kind of lubricant on the back of your brake pads. And then also keep in mind that when you're doing brake bleeding, that you may have a scanner or some kind of code you may have to work through to bleed your brakes. And then also your brake bleeding may be a little bit different than this, considering that, you know, there are different models out there. So you may need to bleed them a little bit differently. You may need to do a scan code or scanner on them. You may have an ABS module that you need to deal with and bleed it a little differently. So always check with the manufacturer just on the specific way to bleed your brakes. Once you get your brakes bled, you're able to put your tire back on. These need to be torqued to 100 foot-pounds. So just check with your specific vehicle because the numbers may vary. So one of the Nissan forums recommended to disconnect your ABS module and disconnect your battery before you attempt to bleed your brakes. So your ABS module would be in your fuse box. It would be in this area right here, that middle 30 amp. So that is removed. Disconnected the negative battery terminal, and then I was able to bleed all 4 brakes. The back brakes take a little while, so you may have to open up your bleeder screw a little bit more just to get fluid flowing through there. But that's it. You know, once you're done, you can top off your master cylinder, and you're good to go. Well, this has been Mike from Mike's Do Yourself. Good luck on your next Armada automotive project. Thanks for watching, and check out the merch store at mikesdiy.net.